Hi everyone, welcome to North Dakota Pulse. Tonight we're going to be talking about the North Dakota legislative session like usual, but also Donald Trump, because last night he signed an executive order that effectively erases recognition of trans individuals from our federal government. However, keep in mind that executive orders are not necessarily legally binding, and what actually happens with this executive order is unclear at the moment. So even if you are cautious or afraid of such a strange thing to happen, give it a while to see what actually comes of it, even if it may sound scary today. That brings us to our legislative session because we heard House Bill 1181, which is a very similar tone to the executive order that Donald Trump had signed, so much so that its bill representative, Sue Ann Olson, actually said, we need this bill specifically to codify the executive order that Trump had just signed. It's not quite how those things work, but I understand the connection. It's a strategically good thing to do. What you should understand about this bill is it was not made to support Donald Trump's executive order. It was submitted on January 7th and is a repeat from a 2023 bill submitted by Senator Clemens. The 2023 bill is of interest, Senate Bill 2199, because it failed horribly in our Senate, in our Judicial Review Committee, because of unintended consequences a bill that is this far-reaching can have, which should be obvious to anyone based on what this bill does, which we'll get into in a second. Highlight, however, is Senator Clemens did talk about this bill on the committee floor and said that he introduced this bill because he didn't want to support trans people. He didn't want government to support trans people in particular because he felt that discriminated against people who don't like trans folks. Not those exact words, but the vibe was there. So when we look at the bill, we should understand where it comes from. It's basically we don't like trans people. Folks who are in favor of it will try to come up with some justifications of good policy for why this would implement it, but the basis of the bill is trans people are yuck. That is it. That's all we need to know. What is special about this bill is what it does, and that is everything, even the kitchen sink. The whole kitchen, the house, and your neighbor's house too. What the bill does is codify a very strict and specific sex binary to apply to every layer of government you could possibly think of. Let me read off what that is. This section applies to all policies, records, forms, rules, standards, procedures, guides, materials, instructions, trainings, correspondence, advertising, or marketing used by any entity receiving state funding, including a public school, an institute under the control of the State Board of Higher Education, and a state agency or office. You would be hard-pressed to find out what this bill doesn't impact. Does it impact your grandma's tea time? Probably. Is she federally funded? Might be. Isn't that just what Medicare is? We'll find out. So this bill is silly, it's far-reaching, and it just hates trans people. There is not good governance to be had here. This solves no problems. We didn't have this bill in 2023 for 2 years. We didn't have this bill the entire human existence before it, and we seem to be doing okay. I have not heard substantial stories of harm because trans individuals exist, except for in the anxiety of individuals, but we should not litigate based on a person's personal anxiety. I feel like that's not a good way to govern. That's my opinion, though. You are welcome to disagree. But what you need to know about this bill right now is that it has been heard. The committee has heard it. They have listened to it, absorbed it, and now they will eventually discuss it. What happens then is they will discuss it and see if there's merit to this bill. Based on the members of the House and Human Service Committee, they will probably find merit to this bill and will likely give it a due pass. You have time right now to contact the committee members and say, actually, this bill has no merit, please don't pass it. They can take that into their considerations. They don't have to, but you can do this. What will happen next is that they will submit that bill either as a do not pass or do pass to the chamber. That will happen in another 2 weeks, probably a week or two, depending on when it's first heard. This is all variable. But you have time then to tell all of the chamber members of House to say, this is actually really bad, don't vote for it. Or you can say, this is really good, you should vote for it. I am a concerned woman of America and I love this shit. They want to say that, but you're welcome that I did that. So individuals are welcome to try to influence the outcome of this bill, and they should. That's how democracy works. The House will vote on it, and if it gets more than, I think, 50 votes, it's like a specific percentage, then it will pass into the next chamber. If it fails, it is pretty much dead forever unless politicking happens, which it can, but it probably won't. So what will happen is it will probably pass the House, and on the table right now, it's going to get a do pass, and it will pass the House by about 55 votes, is my guess. We'll see if I'm right in the future. Good luck, future Faye. What will then happen is we'll have like a 2-week break, there'll be crossover, we'll come back and we'll do the whole thing again. That means likely the Senate Human Service Committee is going to hear this bill. They are They hold things to higher scrutiny than our House Human Service Committee does typically, so it is less likely to pass through their chamber unscathed. That doesn't mean it can't pass through that chamber, but it's not good policy. It's so overreaching. It's already failed once before, so it's unclear if it has a chance. We do live in a different political climate than 2023, though. It's somehow worse. But you will have time to submit testimony again. And during this entire process, you also have time to solicit people to say, hey, do you care about this? Is this important to you? Because you should let our legislators know. Our legislators in an ideal world would listen to our constituents about what they want to see of North Dakota. And to be honest, if 55% of North Dakotans would rather trans individuals don't exist, then we probably shouldn't have them existing in North Dakota. That is the will of the people. I don't think that's the case. I think about 25% of people don't want trans folks to exist, and I don't think we should listen to 25% of the people. I think we should listen to the large indifference of all of us and just let us live and let live. That's my opinion. That's what's going to happen. That's what I think should happen. But the point is, you have time at every part of this process to get involved. So once it is being heard in the Senate, it will be open to testimony. You can officially submit it. You can talk to your senators. They themselves will hear testimony from the bill carrier and everyone else that shows up. That will then be considered for them to do not pass or do pass. It is up to them if they think it's good or not. If we're lucky, it will be a 2-4 don't pass, but it will likely be a 3-3 no opinion is my guess at current makeup. We'll see if I'm right. It will then go to the Senate chamber, and honestly, the Senate will probably vote based on what the bill looks like. I think if the bill got a do pass, it would probably end up passing. If it got anything less than that, it probably wouldn't pass, but at any level, it could be shut down. I don't really know, but this is just based on how our last session went. So you have another whole opportunity basically up until the end of March for this to occur. We have 2 whole months to respond to this bill and still inform people of it being bad or good, depending on who you might be. Now, here's the fun part. Once it actually passes through our House and our chamber, it goes to our governor, Governor Armstrong, my favorite governor for now, conditionally, maybe, can sign or veto that. If Armstrong signs this into law, then it will likely become law in August 1st, unless there's an emergency clause. But for some reason, Representative Olson did not include it, which is a little surprising. Most of these bills are emergency. We have to do this right now, even though we've never done it before and it's hurt no one. But it must be done now. If it had an emergency clause, it would be law as soon as it was signed. But you have time to petition to the governor to say, hey, we actually really don't like this bill. Can you veto it? And the governor, depending on if they have presidential ambitions, may look at this bill and veto it or not. We actually don't know if Governor Armstrong is going to be a hands-on governor in terms of vetoing bills they find bad for our state. I don't know much about Armstrong personally, but everything people have said of them, they seem like a fairly moderate conservative. So it's not impossible a bill like this might get vetoed. A veto would then drop it back down to our House and our Senate. The whole process kind of starts over again, but there's not the same testimony aspect to it. And then House and Senate vote on it, and they have to get a 66%. That is not likely to meet. You need a lot of votes for that, and usually that will only happen to stuff that is that will only happen to stuff the chambers really want to see law. This kind of bill isn't something that most of our representatives super care about. It tends to be special interest groups that really try to push anti-trans narratives. Most of our senators just care about our state. Most of our lawmakers just care about our state. It's a very small minority of our representatives that push bills like this, so I want that to be clear. So we have Governor Armstrong. He can veto it. That would send it back down to the chambers. They would need a 66% vote on both chambers to make it law. Or he could sign it and be like, we did it, no more trans people. And then all the trans folks would just disappear into a cloud of smoke. Or in actuality, nothing would happen because this is basically unenforceable. It is a nonsense bill, and people that are respectable should read this and see how nonsense it is. Like, you can hate trans people and still look at this and be like, this is absolute nonsense. That's what we did in 2023. So that's what we have for the life and trajectory of this bill and the ways you can potentially get involved throughout it. I wanted you to give an idea of what the process can look like because you can apply the same vigor to all the bills that we have, the ones that you love, the ones about dentistry, because there are 8 of them. I haven't sunk my teeth into them, but you can, you, the viewer. So that's what I have for you. I just want to let you know that bill going through tonight because it's one of the bigger ones. It's probably the biggest anti-trans bill that we have this session so far. Until next week, we'll find out if we have even more exciting things to report on. But that's what I have for you tonight because I'm exhausted because last night I did 250 bills and my brain is a potato right now. It's a potato brain. They expect me to say intelligent things about this bill with a potato brain? I'm doing my best, but I got the potato brain. So that's what I have for you tonight. But still, regardless, potato brain or not, yay, democracy! We're doing this. It's good.